You're listening to Succeed, Just Let Go, a podcast that'll change how you think and change your life. I'm Willie Horton and I'm a psychologist, been helping people change their lives since 1996. Broadcasting from the French Alps, and delighted to have you along. Let's take this week's step in the right direction.
We're on the verge of another new year. We're on the verge of what we consider or think to be new beginnings. Most people at this time of the year will hope for new things in 2021. Many people will want new things in 2021. Many of you will commit to doing different things in 2021. And research shows that by the 14th of February, by Valentine's Day 2021, the vast majority of you will have given up. In fact, research actually shows by the 14th of February 2021, many people will have actually forgotten what their New Year's resolutions were. Only, of course, to dust them off this time next year and start all over, in the sure and certain knowledge that I'll fall on my face all over again. Now, obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious, because were that actually the fact of the matter, what would be the point of us having any of these conversations at all? But the fact is that the way in which the normal mind works ensures that from one day to the next, I think the same thoughts, which generate the same emotions or states of mind, which create the same behaviours, which dictate our interaction with other people, which create our version of reality, which ensure that our version of reality from one day to the next, from one year to the next, is the same. Because the normal mind, as we have explored in previous episodes, runs on a loop. And that loop ensures that from one day to the next, for starters, at the very least, I make it through the day, but I don't really achieve anything much different from that. And you see, different is what I actually want to talk about here, because on the cusp of a new year, people want different. People want new things. And it's almost a blind faith very often at the start of a new year that people say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm really committed to do this year. And yet somewhere deep down, they know, the normal mind knows, that my past experiences and how things don't work out for me are a sure and certain roadmap for my future experiences. Now, if you think that, if you are saying to yourself, I can't see beyond the kind of life that I have at the moment, or if I do, the thoughts pop into my head that say to me, oh, that's unrealistic, or you don't deserve that. And you know, if you didn't hear last week's episode, that is what that was all about. The normal mind saying you can't have this, you can't have that, you don't deserve this, or worse, if you do get what you don't deserve, you'll feel guilty about it and it'll ruin the whole experience. But somewhere deep down we know in our heart and soul that life is pretty much going to be the same. And certainly if I'm going to achieve anything in the coming year, it is going to be an incremental achievement. In other words, it's going to be put on top of what I already have. And I'm going to build little by little by little. That's not how the high achievers achieve highly. That is not how great businesses are great. That is not how people who are in charge of their own state of mind live their lives. All of those people, all of what we might consider high achievers, people who are living their ordinary lives extraordinarily, know for a fact that my past experiences are not a guide to my future experiences. That all I have to do is expect new things to happen, and those new expectations will come about. As I've said before, we all live and experience our lives according to our expectations. We can only perceive what we expect to perceive. And therefore we can only behave in the ways in which our perception dictates our behaviour. In other words, we can only behave according to how we expect to behave. And therefore we can only achieve according to our expectations. And bear in mind, for the ordinary mind operating on automatic pilot, all of those key expectations were set by other people who did things for us, or unfortunately often to us, when we were young and impressionable. Made and left an impression that has had an impact on the rest of our lives, up to the point in time when you say to yourself, I'm not going to let my mind run on autopilot anymore. I'm not going to let the 70,000 thoughts that normally rattle through my head every day automatically dictate how I perceive what's going on, automatically dictate how I react, automatically dictate how I behave myself, automatically dictate how I interact with other people, and automatically dictate my version of reality. I'm going to put a stop to that. That's what all these conversations are all about, putting a stop to the automaticity of it all, putting a stop to the repetitive, pre-programmed, patterned life that the normal mind foists upon us. This all boils down to one thing, and it's a very important thing as we sit just a couple of days short of a brand new year. The science is very clear. If I change my expectations, different things will happen. For the simple, pure and simple reason that I perceive and achieve according to my expectations. All I have to do is expect something different to happen, and something different will happen. It doesn't have to be realistic in the way in which the normal mind says, oh, that needs to be realistic. As we said in previous episodes, when the normal mind uses the word realistic, it's always a put down. Get a grip. That's not realistic. You're not going to achieve that. If you expect something, and I'm using the word expect in a very particular way, which I'll explain in a moment, but if you expect something different, that something different will happen. And it doesn't have to be realistic according to the norms of what realistic is, or should be, or could be. We talked last week about one-legged skiers, no-legged skiers, blind skiers, and I'm just talking from the perspective of seeing those people around here, where I live in the French Alps. There are all kinds of examples all over the world of people achieving the unrealistic because they have set their minds, they've set their hearts on achieving that. And that is what I mean by expecting something different. I'm talking about setting our minds in the way in which our minds were originally set when we were young and impressionable, and when we didn't know the difference between what was something good to which we could set our minds, or something bad to which we could set our minds. And on the basis that the normal mind is designed from an evolutionary point of view to ensure our survival, we always were more likely to take psychological snapshots of the expectations that were bad, because it kept us on our toes, it kept us on the edge of our comfort zone, and it ensured that we were always ready for the threat that might end our lives. Originally, 8,000 or 10,000 years ago, in the form of the proverbial man or woman eating tiger leaping from the bushes. All we need to do is change our expectations. All we need to do is set our minds to the things we'd love to have in our lives. The really interesting thing about expectations is that people don't believe their expectations until they actually have evidence that they should believe it. There's an old expression, seeing is believing, and in some movies, some kind of touchy-feely, soft, lovey-dovey movies, you'll hear the expression, oh, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. I think I actually came across that in a Christmas movie a couple of weeks ago. But actually both of those expressions go right to the heart of what I mean by the word expectation. When I was 3, I took psychological snapshots of events that made me feel good or bad about myself. I actually remember my 4th birthday in particular, and taking a psychological snapshot of something that made me feel bad about myself, which would be kind of typical for the normal mind. That is something the normal mind will carry around with them for the rest of their lives. What that psychological snapshot actually creates is an expectation, or if I can use the ordinary everyday language of how we feel about ourselves, it is a belief. I believe I'm good at this. I believe I'm bad at that. I believe I am inadequate. I believe I suffer from low self-esteem. I have beliefs about myself. Because I saw it. Because it took a psychological snapshot. Because believing is seeing. In exactly the same way, the normal mind in the world in which we live cannot even begin to understand that something that they would dearly like to achieve is even possible to achieve, because they've never seen it happen. But the moment they see it happen, suddenly they believe it, and suddenly they can achieve it. The classic example of this is Sir Roger Bannister. Now, maybe it's only people of my age that I don't need to explain to as to who Sir Roger Bannister is or was. Sir Roger Bannister was the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. And loads of people had tried to break this barrier of the 4-minute mile and failed and failed and failed. It wasn't a physical barrier, as it turned out. It was a psychological barrier. Because once Bannister had run a 4-minute mile, or a sub-4-minute mile, within a matter of weeks, half a dozen other athletes had broken that psychological barrier as well, because believing is seeing. They actually saw somebody do it, and suddenly, even to the normal mind, it was realistic. Now, how much more exciting can your life be if not only do you believe something because you've seen it, but by virtue of the fact that you're not operating from your normal mind anymore, you're actually operating from a clear and present mind. And you see, that's what happens when we meditate. When we meditate, we clear our minds. We're not using our minds normally anymore. We're unconstrained by the thought programs that led us to a set of beliefs about ourselves that held us back, a set of expectations to which we lived down. What am I saying? Well, in essence, it's extraordinarily simple. What I'm saying to you is that when we clear our minds, and we clear our minds through meditation, that is something that we have covered in previous episodes, but I will come back to it again and again and again into the future because it is so important. I'll come back to it again in a minute. But we clear our minds through meditation. The clearer our minds become, the clearer becomes our understanding of what is really possible, which is very different from the normal construct of what is realistic. And what that means is that the clearer our minds become, the clearer our understanding becomes of the life that we would really, really love to have. That is why perhaps the most frequent conversation I have with clients or online groups, and groups that I've been having conversations with again and again and again, over and over again, the most frequent subject that we cover is what you would really like to have in life. The experiences you would really like to have in life, beyond what we consider to be realistic. Because it is something that we can only get our heads around, the more we gain control of what is going on inside our own head. The more we control the states of mind that we experience moment to moment. It's awfully simple. It's awfully simple. What I need to do is continually develop my innate ability to be present in the moment, to clear out the rubbish in my own head, to spring clean my own stored knowledge, the rubbish that holds me back, the self-defeating thoughts, the self-limiting beliefs, the self-limiting expectations that we all carry around with us. The broom that I use to sweep my brain clean is meditation. The cleaner and cleaner my brain becomes, the clearer and clearer the picture becomes to me of the kind of life I'd really love to have. And because I've done my spring cleaning, I am no longer constrained by the rubbish thoughts in my own head that would say, oh, that's not realistic, or you don't deserve it, or if you do deserve it, you'll feel guilty and it'll ruin the whole experience. All those thoughts will be gone because you simply swept them away through meditation. I've used the meditation word a few times now. The more I meditate, the clearer my mind becomes. The more I meditate, the more novel the restructuring of my subcortical brain. The more I meditate, the more my subcortical brain's key components communicate with each other in a different way. The more that happens, the less I am constrained by the thoughts that held me back, including the collective thoughts that we have as normal human beings. In other words, the group of guys or girls that I hang around with who say, oh no, you couldn't do that, or if you did do that, we wouldn't like you anymore, or you'd be different and we wouldn't have anything to do with you. Or, this is the way this particular kind of business works, or this kind of career works, or this is the way this kind of little bit of our world works. They're all collective thoughts of which I am free as well when I do that spring cleaning. And that means that I've suddenly taken off the handcuffs or the chains that bind my understanding of the kind of life I would love to have. In other words, I'm free, I'm out in the open, I'm unconstrained. The more I meditate, the more unconstrained I am. The more unconstrained I am, the more I begin to understand, oh, this is the kind of life I would really love to have. These are the kind of experiences I really want to have more and more of in my life. This is the kind of way in which I want to spend my days, spend my hours, spend my moments. These are the kind of people I want to spend those days and moments with. This is the kind of experience I want to be able to drink in effortlessly every day. Now, I've deliberately used every single word that I have just used because science tells us that I can have all of those things, including the effortless bit, by the way. I can have all of those things once I get my head around it. Now, I get my head around it by ensuring that my head is under my control. That's what meditation enables me to do. Just before I sat down to record this podcast, I got an email from somebody who is going through one of my free 3-part online training programs at the moment, who said that people who meditate are deluding themselves, that meditation doesn't work for most people, and you have to accept the way the world is. The point I would make is that meditation is simply a tool. That's all it is. It is simply a scientifically validated tool to ensure that I develop my ability to see what's possible for me, unconstrained from the thoughts that hold me back, to understand the kind of life that I can have, unconstrained from the thoughts that hold me back, the thoughts that hold me back personally, and the collective thoughts that hold me back because of the kind of people I hang around with, or the kind of education I've had, or the kind of society in which I live. All of those things are simply constructs of normal, repetitive, looped, patterned thinking. Meditation is a scientifically validated tool to enable me free myself from all of that. In actual fact, meditation is the only scientifically validated tool that enables me to do that. The only one we have. It is the only way in which I can free my mind. It is the only way in which I can let go of the thoughts that bind, the thoughts that hold me back. It is the only way in which I can engage my so-called attentional spotlight to enable me understand what's actually going on in the here and now. How disabled are we as normal human beings when our attentional spotlight is not involved in our lives, which is the case, by the way, and cognitive psychology and neuroscience has validated this again and again and again. That is how the normal mind experiences, in inverted commas, ordinary, everyday, in inverted commas again, life. Because it's not everyday life, it's everyday existence. The normal mind's attentional spotlight is never, ever, ever on in ordinary, everyday life. But when I meditate, I turn it on. And it's the only way I can turn it on. It's the only scientifically validated way that ensures that I can turn this part of my brain on, which enables me know what's going on, free from my expectations that hold me back, the old expectations. Knowing what's going on, I can then do what I need to do, fully aware of what is going on in the here and now, to get that to which I have set my mind, set my heart. And it's the setting of the mind and the setting of the heart. That is what I'm referring to when I use the word expectation. Unfortunately, as you might be beginning to understand from all these conversations, ordinary everyday language is ill-equipped to fully explore what we're actually talking about here. You know, people talk about focus as if they understood what focus actually means. People talk about concentrating as if they understood what that means. Because, by the way, the normal mind can do neither of those things. People talk about, oh, I expect this to happen or I expect that to happen, as if they understood what the actual word expect or expectation actually means. People talk about goals as if they understood how to set goals for themselves. You know, these are people who would have to-do lists. These are people who would have shopping lists of the things they want to achieve or want out of life. These are people who would commit to going to the gym twice a week for 2021 because they want to get fit, and because they're normal crazy people, they would enroll for a year and go to the gym twice, not twice a week, twice in the year, because that is the way the normal mind works. These constructs and the way in which we use the language to explain these constructs take us away from a reality that we can only experience when we do turn on our attentional spotlight and turn up to the here and now. When I turn up to the here and now, I realize the nonsense of the expectations to which I previously lived down. I understand that I have abilities that my expectations hid from me. When I turn up to the here and now, I realize that I'm capable of doing things that I didn't think I would be comfortable doing. When I turn up to the here and now, I realize that there are ways in which I can behave that are oh so different from all the patterned ways in which I have been behaving up to now. I don't have to retrain myself. I don't have to learn something new. I don't have to become superhuman in some way. I don't have to become a superhero. All I have to do is turn up to the here and now and begin to see the reality of what is achievable. Because, as I said a few minutes ago, believing is seeing. And that is where we will pick up the conversation next week, because this is fundamental to your living the kind of life that you want. Fully getting your head around what I mean by believing is seeing. If you really want to change your life in 2021, even some small aspect of it, if you really want to start living the kind of life that even your normal mind would like you to live, but most importantly, if you really want to let yourself go and live the kind of life that your clearing, extraordinary mind begins to understand is possible, if you really want to let yourself go and live that kind of life, you need to deepen your presence in the moment and fully understand what I mean by the phrase, believing is seeing. This is important for you. It is important for you going forward. It is important for those you love. It is important for your friends. It's important for those with whom you work. It is important for your success, happiness, health, wealth, and well-being. With that in mind, between now and the next time we talk, you might just meditate a little bit more, because the clearer your mind becomes, the clearer your understanding of the kind of life that is possible for you to live emerges.
You've been listening to Succeed, Just Let Go. To get involved, join me in my Facebook group, strangely enough called To Succeed, Just Let Go. And for more information, visit www.willie-horton.com.